Tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership skills. Has this ever happened to you? You show up to an interview thinking you're super prepared and get tripped up by a question like this. How do you get prepared? Well, let me just give you the answer straight away. Know your accomplishments, ground them in data, and take those notes to your interview. Now, if you want to go deeper into this and learn how I use this process to land a white-collar job with no degree and little experience, stick around. I'm going to be straight with you. I've made up things on the spot in situations like this and been just fine. I'm pretty good at winging it. Not everyone has that skill though, or is even comfortable in interviews. I know lots of people that are just straight up uncomfortable interviewing, but kill it when they land a job. If you are uncomfortable going to interviews, or you're a little rusty, or you just have problems with questions like this, what do? If you appear uncomfortable or look like you're making something up, it will probably raise some red flags for the interviewer. It is perfectly reasonable to say, I haven't been in that situation before, but this is how I might deal with something like that. If you haven't been in that situation, don't lie about it. Don't try to make something up because it's not going to sound genuine. But if you say, okay, this is how I think I might deal with that, that's going to go a long way. That shows some problem solving, and that's going to look good for the interviewer. I've had plenty of good experiences admitting that I didn't know something. Saying you don't know something is perfectly okay. But what most people don't do is the second thing. Hey, I don't know that, but let me find the answer. Most employers aren't looking to hire people that know everything. They're looking for problem solvers. And when you take this approach in an interview or with a client or a customer, it goes a long way. You may not have the answers, but maybe you know the person that does have the answer, and you're going to get that answer no matter what it takes. This approach can be powerful if you consider some key things. Number one, the admission. Acknowledge your inexperience promptly. Don't make it seem as though you're trying to manufacture an answer. If you sit there thinking about it for 5-10 minutes and then say, I haven't really been in that situation, or you just make something up, your interview might not go very well. Number two, be genuine in how you respond to that situation. Try and use a personal example if you can think of one. And then finally, after giving your response, ask the interviewer how they've handled that situation. Be interested in learning from their experience, especially if you're on that level 2 interview where you've gotten past the recruiter and you're actually talking to the manager. You show an interest in what the manager has to say, that goes a long way. Plus, then you're asking questions, and interviewers always love when you ask questions. So, how do you prepare yourself as best as possible? Well, for me, I found that taking notes and recording my experience gives me the boost I need to stand out. What I always say about myself is I have a lot of RAM, but very little hard drive space. Some things just don't tend to stay saved in my brain that long. I can handle multiple different things at the same time. That's why I'm really good at winging it. But recalling things is sometimes a struggle. Taking notes is something that, unfortunately, I started way too late in my career. Nevertheless, it helped me progress in my career faster than I thought possible. Potential employers love when you can ground a story in data, whether that data is qualitative or quantitative. It's usually important to grab any data points or moments of impact you have and tie them into your story, or even have them ready to tie into a question you might get. The more data points you build into your story, the more credible your answer will be. So let me give you an example of a question that I got in an interview, and we'll discuss some responses. Tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership skills. This is a pretty standard question, which most people can usually pull out a good answer. That's the rub, isn't it? You need to stand out from most people. Instead of saying something like, well, in my last role, I really stepped up and I took my department from failing to being a top performer. Does that sound very specific? No data points in there. There's no real beginning, middle, or end to that story. There's no emotional response in there. There's nothing. So let's try a different approach. In my career at the wireless company, I had been working towards gaining the right experience to move up into management. In this pursuit, I jumped on a lead technical consultant role to gain the needed back office experience. The only problem was I took over a department that was in 525th place out of 530 in the company. It was a pretty tough spot to be in, and I had to spearhead a lot of changes. But within the next quarter, I had taken us from 525th place to 22nd place. But what was your takeaway from this response? What makes it stand out from the generic response I gave earlier? Well, there's 3 major points to consider in this answer. There's an inciting incident, my goal to further my career, so there's context for this story. Then there's a potential roadblock. The department was performing poorly. And there's a resolution with a sprinkle of data to drive the point home. Thank you for watching part 1. Make sure to check back later for part 2, where we dive deeper and we talk about one of my favorite subjects, root cause analysis.